Welcome back to Digesting Dark, where we are tackling the Netflix series Dark, one episode at a time. For this episode of the podcast, we have not rewatched a particular episode, but we did just finish rewatching season 1 and season 2, and we are in that transition point before season 3 drops. So we're going to do a little wrap-up, preview of season 3, and Q&A from our listener questions. I am Zach Brooks, and I am joined by the Dark Season 2 to my Dark Season 1, Aaron Brooks. Aaron, hello.
You would make me Dark Season 2. That's fine. I still prefer Dark Season 1, but I do like Dark Season 2 a lot more after the rewatch. So well, glad to be here.
You're younger than me, so Season 2 was shorter than Season 1, and that was why I picked it.
I'm from the future, though.
It's true. We do start Season 2 in the future. So, well, no, we don't. We start in the past. Just kidding. Yeah. So, of course, we just finished going through over the last 3 weeks or so all 18 episodes of Dark that have already come out on Netflix. We rewatched them and talked through each of them with having the lens of finishing season 2. So if you've not listened to that, you still have time. You can definitely go back and listen to all of those. And you can find them on any of your favorite podcasting app where you can subscribe. You also can subscribe on YouTube as well. So go back through each of those. You can hear really deep dive into each of those 18 episodes. And now we are just in that time where we're waiting over the next, 36 hours or so for season 3 to drop. And I think it's getting real. I'm getting excited for it. How about you?
Yeah, I really, I'm glad that they committed to releasing on the 27th. I wish they were releasing on the 26th, and we were talking about like 12 hours from now getting ready to watch it. Right. Dark episode, I'm going to wake up at 3 a.m. on the East Coast to watch it as a drop. For one, it's 3 a.m., it's 3, so I have to in honor of Dark.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's good.
It's so maybe it won't stick and I'll have to watch it once or twice. I haven't even thought about how many times I'm going to have to watch these episodes in order to at all talk about them. Because now we're out of the rewatch section. We're
right in the rewatch. We knew it was coming, so we could be like, "Oh yeah, pay attention to Elizabeth. She's gonna end up being Charlotte's mother / daughter."
Yeah, look for any of these scenes with Burned or all these characters who like. I mean, but yeah. So we are really going through the passage into the section of the unknown world.
And we're like Katarina right now. We're in the tunnel and we're waiting to come out onto the other side into the future of Dark. But we're like in between those two times.
Yeah, but just before we dive into the questions here and everything, just to kind of set the kind of expectations, so to speak, I guess. Both of us, we haven't watched any material for season 3. So
nope, nothing. No trailers, nothing.
No trailers, no Reddit posts, nothing like that. I do occasionally go on Reddit, but not for this show. I haven't, and I look forward to maybe after the season's done, maybe checking it out a little bit. But as of now,
we're both trying to stay as unspoiled as possible with this, especially once it comes out, because there are going to be people who 12 hours after this comes out, by the time I wake up Saturday morning, will have already watched the whole season, and I won't even have started it. So, I think if you're trying to protect yourself from spoilers as well, we can kind of talk about some of that stuff that you can do. Like we said, we're, name of the podcast is Digesting Dark. We're not rushing through this. We're going to be doing no more than one episode a day over the next 8 days or 10 days, depending on how many episodes it is. So, we're not going to know what happens until a little over a week from now in this show. So I'm trying to do my best to protect myself from spoilers. I follow Dark on Instagram already, and actually their Instagram is really, really cool. I would definitely recommend checking it out, but I am going to be unfollowing them. Starting probably when I get off this podcast, I'll unfollow Dark. Also going to mute the hashtag and just be very cautious on social media and Google News. I know will often send me push alerts about things that I search for, and I've searched for Dark quite a bit. So I'm going to need to figure out how to hide it on Google News as well for the next 8 days.
Yeah, I think that this is one of the only times I'm not going to complain about it not being in the cultural zeitgeist of everybody, because I think this even though I definitely can tell from season 1 to season 2 to now season 3, this is by far the biggest Dark has ever been.
Well, I think it's the combination of everybody being stuck at home, starved for content, but also just it's going to the final season. People have gotten on board. I'm surprised like some of the major media outlets aren't covering it like I would have expected. Like The Ringer has nothing about Dark. And The Ringer usually deep dives these type of shows like crazy. Like final season of Game of Thrones, they had so much. And I know Game of Thrones is a much more popular show, but even I feel like, Mr. Robot, they had stuff like none of their podcasts have even talked about Dark.
Yeah.
It's just surprising to me because The Ringer is one of my go-to sites for pop culture news.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of one of those mysteries. I don't really know. But it regardless, I'm glad to be here talking about it. I'm looking forward to doing my best to answer some of these questions, but a lot of them very well may end in I don't know from me.
Yeah. I think we can just use those as like a launching point. We have tons of questions that we got in. So thank you guys who sent in questions. It's really awesome to see the people who have discovered this podcast and have, we hope we've been helpful for people and kind of remembering what happened in season 1 and season 2. No, I know at least for me, I was going to rewatch anyways. And that was where this whole podcast started, was because we both were planning to rewatch the first 2 seasons before it came out. And this just gave us a reason to hop on a video chat and talk every day. And so it was nice to walk through this, take notes, and really dive into Dark over the last couple of weeks. And so I hope that the work that we've done has been helpful for you guys as well, getting back into it.
Yeah, if nothing else, if we don't know what we're talking about, we love this show, and that's what this show is all about. Is love.
We both would rather be wrong. I do not want my predictions to be right. Because if I thought
I kind of want my prediction. I kind of want my prediction to be right. I'll be honest. I'm not a big. My prediction that just overall that Martha from the other world is Jonas of this world, essentially. It's mirror worlds.
Yeah, I think that's a good prediction because we talked a lot about, my mirror letter theory that was very early on in our podcast.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about reflections. I can't remember which episode that was in season 1, but I think it was like episode 3 or episode 4 where there was a lot of stuff about twin and mirroring. So the idea of the alternate world is a mirror world to this one, and that Martha plays the Jonas role. I think that would narratively make a lot of sense.
Yeah. And, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, I've never podcasted about a show before, so this has been a learning experience for me. And then I crossed officially 100 pages of notes by the end of
nice. You should publish it.
Yeah. So it's just, it really does look like the ramblings of Michael or Ulrich or Katarina. I must be a Conwald.
Yeah.
Or Nielsen, sorry. I get the names are everywhere for me still.
I've only deep dived into a show podcasting about it on House of Cards, and this show is much different than House of Cards. I think the only thing they share in common is that they are both on Netflix. And so I do have experience with the whole like covering a show that somebody else has binged over a slow period of time, which is why I'm excited to announce that I have created an email address for this podcast because it's going to be too hard to collect feedback on YouTube comments. I'm not even going to be looking at the YouTube comments until after we finish the season, just because I don't want to accidentally see something. We'll still check our Twitter mentions, but probably the easiest way to get us feedback as you're watching is to email us at digestingdarkpod@gmail.com. That email address is live. Again, it is digestingdarkpod@gmail.com. And if you could, when you do send in any feedback, if you want us to look at it at all, you have to put the episode number in the subject line because we know that people are going to be ahead of us. And if you want us to look at it before we finish the season, if you watch episode 3 and you have feedback on episode 3, put episode 3 in the subject line and then try not to put a spoiler like the first couple words of the email because it'll show up in the Gmail preview. And then once we get to episode 3, then I'll open that email and we'll pull that feedback for the podcast. And then we'll do like we're doing with this. Once we finish the season, we'll do at least one big feedback show like this as well. So, but it's great when we can get the community feedback. We have a ton of good questions for this. So as we're going, after we watch episode 1, we'll check and see if we have any emails that have episode 1 on the subject line. We will talk about them. But please try to respect spoiling us and spoiling others as best you can, because that's what makes this show so fun, is just the amazing different directions that it goes.
Yeah, and it may be, obviously there are ways to spoil it, but I think this is such a good show that if somehow I get accidentally spoiled on something, I bet it doesn't even affect the show.
No, because we both really enjoyed the rewatch just as much as the first watch. I mean, there were surprises that were not there from on the rewatch versus the first watch, but then it was more like, oh, we noticed that we should be following this character, or like, oh, okay, yeah, Agnes is Noah's sister. Like, obviously we can watch that relationship a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
So
exactly.
All right. Well, I just brought up Agnes. And I don't know. I mean, do you want to start with Jonas since he's like the center of all this, or do you want to start with somebody kind of more on the end of the spectrum? Or should we start?
I think we should probably, start with Jonas and work our way out from there. It would make sense to me.
So I guess what I'll do is I'll just kind of recap where he is at the end of the finale.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there are multiple versions of Jonas. So Jonas Prime, if we want to call him that, that's kind of original Jonas that we've been following this whole show. He spent a year studying with Claudia and now came back on June 21st or June 27th, 2020. And he witnessed his older version of himself, Adam, shoot Martha right in front of him. And then he saw Martha. He had Martha from the alternate universe, who may or may not be Martha. She said she's not who you'd think. She showed up out of a portal with a machine and grabbed Jonas. And she said, "It's not when I'm from. It's what world I'm from." So she took him somewhere to some other world.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And Adam had given Prime Jonas the option of either stopping him or trying to save her, as in Martha.
And we don't know exactly what that means. So, all right, here's a question about Jonas that we got on YouTube. This is from Try or Try Not on YouTube. And he says, because we have talked, how is this show going to wrap up? He says, do you think Jonas is going to have to kill himself to end the loop, as he really shouldn't exist?
I mean, that seems like the obvious, almost the obvious theory at this point. And it seems like that even I believe the stranger brings up with either Katerina or Martha, one of the two. I think he brings up how if it was as simple as me killing myself to take me out of the loop, I would do that. But
yeah, that was with Katerina, because that was when Katerina said, you don't want to tell me how to use the time machine, because if you do, then you wouldn't exist, and you don't want me to save Mikkel.
Yeah, and I don't think it's that so I just don't think it's that simple with everything being connected. Him removing himself affects everybody else also.
Mm-hmm.
So this, possibly him killing himself eliminates the world, maybe, and not just himself from the world. Mm-hmm. So because while he doesn't belong in the world, he's a mistake. He thinks all this. That's setting us up to realize he's not, I think, because it's so clearly in that direction.
Yeah, we went into this rewatch saying, like, I remember you were saying early in season 1, you said, yeah, this all is Jonas needs to cut himself. He needs to cut his knot out of this loop, and that will end things. And it seems like you're kind of not on that train anymore. You don't necessarily.
I feel like that's so explicitly told, or maybe it's just because I'm paying so much attention and taking notes, but it seems like that's so obvious the direction they're going with it, that if but it's not possible. So it's not possible for him to do as a young man,
right?
Because he
has to become the stranger and has to become Adam.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we still may not know at this point when the beginning is, or if there's a beginning.
Right, if there's a beginning at all. And I think after watching this, what I came to is that we have not yet seen the stranger, Jonas Prime, and Adam all in the same place. And, they all were in the same time at the end of the second season, but we didn't see them all at the same place. So I'm starting to think the only way that this cycle can fully end is for some sort of major confrontation between the three of them.
For all three to die at the same point?
Something for all three of, yeah. I don't know. I envision, I brought up Star Wars Episode 3 the other day. I think it's almost like that kind of thing, like the Anakin Obi-Wan confrontation, that we're going to have the Adam, Jonas, and stranger confrontation. Now, this isn't an action show. We're not going to get a lightsaber battle between them, but something has to happen with the three of them, either the three of them going against each other, or maybe the three of them all working together to do something.
Mm-hmm.
So, especially with how much the show is about threes, that would really make sense as our central character.
Yeah. So, I mean, originally I kind of thought that was where it was going, but it seems too simple.
Mm-hmm.
We have so many other. That simple.
We have so many other characters as well. that we need to deal with. So, yeah, it's definitely not just going to be Jonas. And I do want to talk about not just the major characters and the main families, but we have these ancillary characters. So I definitely want to bring those up too.
But yeah, so I'd say that would be our answer for that.
Yeah. I mean, there would be something poetic if it's like the show ends with Jonas hanging himself, but we already seen Jonas hanging when Elizabeth hung him.
So. Yeah, they really have to do it in an effective way for me to buy that as the ending, honestly. Yeah. I just don't see it. That seems way like too oversimplified to me.
All right, well, let's go into a couple other things about Jonas. So Steph on Twitter reached out to us, and she said she's been rewatching Dark and listening to the podcast. In season 1, episode 7, she noticed that the stranger and Jonas do not have the same eye color. Very obviously indicated at the end of the scene outside the hospital. So this is in the future. The stranger's eyes are brown. Jonas's eyes are blue. Is this a goof or is this something else?
What color are Adam's eyes? Do we know that?
Okay. I don't think we ever really can see Adam's eyes. I feel like
they show him crying. They show him crying a few times. You can see the tears, and he has that one bigger eye. His right eye is bigger than his left eye. Maybe if you could see a picture of him, but I don't think it's a goof. I do think it's done on purpose because they do show direct shots of the two faces,
and they bring up eyes so much in this show.
And they bring up eyes a lot in this show. I think that's maybe a result of radiation exposure.
The eye color changing?
Yeah, maybe over time. Yeah, maybe over time.
Because Claudia has the two different colored eyes.
Yeah. So, and I think Elizabeth's eyes kind of change over time from when she's older to younger. When she's younger, they're like really blue. Once she's older, they're like pretty cloudy. So I think that would be my theory, is that maybe it's a sign of time travel.
Because I feel like, and I just tried to look up pictures of Adam, and his eyes are very sunken in. That's the thing. You can see his eyes, but it's really hard to see what color they are because of the way his face with the makeup that they put on is very sunken in.
Well, they're definitely not blue.
No, they're not blue. They look dark to me. So maybe it's like you lose that color the more you're exposed to radiation.
Yeah, brown to black.
Right.
I mean, even though Claudia, as she was older, still had the heterochromia or whatever it's called. Like her eyes were all like they're like very, very like dark black by the end.
And on the other side of that spectrum, Elizabeth's eyes are in the future. Elizabeth's eyes are very light. Now I know that like it looks like she might have even lost one. I can't remember for sure, but I mean her eyes are like pastel color almost.
Yeah, so I think that may just be a sign that the stranger had traveled a lot by the time he becomes Jonas, or by the time Jonas becomes him.
Yeah. All right, let's see what other questions that we have. So the next one, trying to like sort these as we're talking about them. The next one is from Adrian Callie on YouTube. And he says that he notes that Jonas was traveled by a new device right at the end, possibly to a parallel universe. If so, do you think he would be the first man to travel into that parallel universe, an Adam-like figure, if you will? And that could be why his name is Adam.
That's interesting.
He said, and then he said at the end, he says, Adam's purpose seems to only be to ensure that Jonas follows that path into the parallel universe.
Yeah, I mean, it really does seem he knew he was going to do that. And he knows that he does then. There's so many times where Adam is watching Jonas do something he knows he's going to do, and Adam is crying. So, like, I don't know what that means, but they show it, but it's not like, I mean, his tear ducts are all fucked up by this point. So it's just like, you see like this like wetness around his eyes. So you really have to look for it. Otherwise you can kind of don't even notice it, because they don't want to like show him like huffing and puffing and sobbing. But they do want you to know, if you're looking, that he is torn by what's happening still to this day. He's not just this evil Time Lord boss. I do think that if you watch this show, you can see the stranger kind of going down the path where he will become Adam, because it really is just like Adam thinks that he's doing what's right, and he realizes like the greater, we talked about kind of the bigger battle versus the bigger war versus the smaller battles, and that's what Adam is really doing, is Adam realizes that there is a bigger cause that he needs to fight,
And
so he thinks, yeah.
And so he thinks that he has to have all of these things happen, which is, similar to the path we saw Claudia take as well. And, even if you watch like Ulrich's, now Ulrich is doing things on a much smaller scale, but look at how Ulrich has progressed from just trying to find his son to then attacking a kid and basically becoming what he was trying to stop in the first place.
Yeah. And again, I mean, Adam's at a war with time, and in wars, you often have to make moves that optically look really terrible and may cause some people their lives to save a lot of others.
And to sacrifice, yeah, it'll be a sacrifice.
And like you might look like the evil guy in this, but it's like what he's doing the necessary work, I think, in his view. Mm-hmm. And again, he believes he's in a war. If you view this all as a war, it's like I wish I could think of a good example of it, but it's like sending the one ship in to draw the opposing forces in to trap them, and that one ship is fucked, but it ends up defeating the opponent at the end of the day, which is
right. He's basically sacrificing Martha, probably to save Martha. I would imagine he's trying to save Martha from some very dark fate, and so he's sacrificing her to save her.
And he doesn't care who. Yeah, and he doesn't care who, including himself from the past, thinks he's an evil bastard for this. He doesn't, because he believes he's justified and right.
Yeah.
Thanos, that is the exact, he's just like Thanos. That is literally, yeah. He's very similar to Thanos.
He kind of looks like Thanos, too. If you made Adam purple,
yeah,
he wouldn't look that different. Okay, yeah, that's there you go.
And he may be just as wrong as Thanos here, where it's like Thanos, you eliminated half of the people, like half the population, but in his view, he was doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's been internet to death at this point. No, they're like double the food, all this shit. I get it. But Thanos thought he had to do this evil, like, including sacrificing his own daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So Jonas has definitely had to sacrifice his own family in this case. So,
yeah. Well, I hope everybody.
Thanos and Adam very similar.
Yeah. I do think the name Adam too. It's that name is picked for a reason. Like obviously
just
Jonas
like
changes. Obviously, Jonas changes his name to Adam at some point, or starts going by Adam. And who is Adam? Adam is the first man in the Bible. So whether he's the first man in the alternate world, or he traveled back and he's the first, he forms Sigmundes and he's the first time traveler, and he starts going by Adam. I think that's something I'm really interested in watching in season 3 is what is this? How do we get this transformation from the stranger to Adam? Because I think we've basically seen without the facial layer how Jonas becomes the stranger through this season, and so now we need to see how the stranger becomes Adam. Which the first step to that was the stranger with Bartos and Francisca and Magnus all using the time machine to travel somewhere at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So speaking of, what did we just talk about? We just talked about Adam and Jonas. Let's talk a little bit about Martha. And another question from Try or Try Not on YouTube. He says, with Martha turning up from an alternate timeline at the end of season 2, do you think we'll have any other alternate timeline versions of characters from all the other 5 times? Of every character from all the 5 times?
Yeah, I think we're going to see an alternate version of everybody.
You do? See, I think that's so much to do, especially like if we had 3 more seasons of this show, I think we could see that, but I just don't know if there's enough.
We're going to see Ulrich, I think. We're going to see Hannah, alternate Hannah. We're going to see, I think Helge makes an appearance in the alt world. I really think we're going to see a lot of the characters. I think we spend a lot of the beginning of this 3rd season in the alt world. Maybe
so I was thinking about that because I feel like that could feel like we're getting bogged down in the first couple episodes. If we're too much in the alt world, at least
I think
connected to the alt world.
Yeah, so I think that I think they're kind of bait and switch a little bit and make you think it's really committing to this alt world, and I think the alt world isn't going to be as huge of a part of the season. I think it's just going to initially be a part of the season to give you context to the rest of what's coming.
Yeah. Well, I mean, could you see it that we're watching maybe even like a cold open? So a couple other shows have done this that I've watched where you're watching a cold open and you think you're in the main world, and then they pull back and you realize either you're in the alternate world or you're in another time. Do you think we could like open the season and we see things look great, for example, and everything is the way it's supposed to be, and then we realize we're in the alternate world or it's like some sort of like bait and switch.
Yeah, I think that I think things are just going to be different in this art world, and yet very similar in a lot of ways. But like, I think that maybe Helge's left ear will be heard instead of his right ear.
Oh, so it's like literally a mirror world.
Yeah, maybe in some ways, but also in the ways it happens. Maybe instead of Ulrich attacking Helge, it ends up being Katarina or something. I don't really know.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think because there's a show, and I think I know which one it is, and I don't want to spoil it because it's always like the end of the shows. But I feel like there's a show where, I know which one it is. It's a show that ended last year, and you watched this show also. And there's a whole like series of episodes where things take place in like a mirror world, and everybody is like different, right? Like the more successful people are less successful.
Yeah, I think it could be similar to that, to be honest.
Okay.
I think it could be very similar.
Yeah. All right. Well,
not with how it ends.
So we do have a question with the ending that relates to that, but I'm gonna save that because just to space it out a little bit from the discussion of that.
Okay.
If you know what show we're talking about, you know what show we're talking about. So all right. So more stuff with Martha. Did you know that Freud's wife was named Martha? This is from Amanda on Twitter. She said, also, I feel really bad. I really feel that the use of primary colors denotes those who are most influenced at certain times by their id, their ego, and their superego. So the id is red, the ego is yellow, and the superego is blue. So how familiar are you with Freud?
I'm decently familiar as a psych major.
Yes, I was also a psych major. I know Freud, but I'm looking up now what the id, the ego, and the superego exactly are. I think the id is when you follow like your impulses more. So let's see. The id is your instincts. The ego is reality, and the superego is morality. Mm-hmm. That's like the easiest way it's broken down by this. Quick simplepsychology.org is where I found this. All of our professors would be happy that we're using this website.
Yeah.
So do you, I mean, I guess that would be something I would have to rewatch and like pay attention to the colors with that. Yellow being reality is interesting to me. And red being instincts. So are people like, following their instincts, like unchecked id when they're in red? I can think of like Agnes in red a lot.
Hannah was in red.
Anna
Mikhail's in red when he goes back.
Yeah, but do you think his instinct was going through the tunnel? I mean,
I don't really. Yeah, I think again, like sometimes what the internet has kind of done with a lot of shows is because certain shows had a lot of color theory in them.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people overdo it and think that is kind of the case. I still do think yellow represents danger and radioactivity, and just overall it represents risk or something. But I'm not really sure about that necessarily.
I think red, I could see red being like passion or like unchecked instinct. Because it does seem like for the most part with red, we see it more on women than we do on men, just as I'm trying to think back to it.
Yeah. I'm not sure though.
Yeah. So that'd be something interesting. I think the idea of Freud's wife being named Martha is pretty interesting.
Yeah, Freud's brought up quite a bit in the show.
Yeah.
So.
And there are three, the id, the ego, superego. That's another example of three. So
yeah, I just think there's so many different ways to view like the three, like you can view it from like a Father, Son, and Holy Ghost angle. I bet too. Like I bet there's just so many different threes. It's like the battle of science and belief and reason or emotion. Like all these different like threesomes that really can be filled in. So for you that fits and that works and like you kind of think of things from a psychological perspective, I don't think that I can really deny that with this, and there's probably a way to be able to view those character motivations from that angle, but that's not where I'm coming from.
Well, the other thing about Freud too is there is the whole Oedipus complex with Freud.
Right.
And so with that, it's where you fall in love with your mother as a child. It's like a thing that it's part of the child development. Gonna butcher it for sure, but if you think about this show in terms of Oedipus complex, I mean, we do have a lot of characters with very interesting relationships with family members, sexual relationships with family members, whether it's what they want or potentially in Helga's case like abuse in his background. And a lot of times these relationships end up turning out to be somebody being their own grandmother, for example, in Elizabeth's case, or Jonas and Martha having an aunt-nephew relationship. So that could tie into Oedipal relationships as well.
Yeah, maybe she's like his mother in this world or something. I don't know. Just things maybe aren't completely mirrored. Maybe they're just like that show we were talking about, just a little bit off, just a little bit different.
So speaking of names and Freud, Dom Christie on Twitter, he said that after we mentioned Freud's ego and id on a recent episode, he was wondering about other names. And so he checked some names, and the one that he sent us is a Wikipedia article to the name Innes. And he said, click that and look at the first line. So I did. And I think this is one, I don't think it's a spoiler necessarily, but it's just way too convenient to not be something related to the show. So I'm not going to be spoiler averse with this, but if somebody wanted to jump ahead like a minute, they might be. So Innes and its variant is a feminine name given related to Agnes. So right in the Wikipedia article, the name Innes is related to Agnes.
So what does that mean?
My initial thought was that Agnes was the baby that Innes lost.
Didn't she say it was a boy? Didn't she say it was a son?
Okay, maybe it was Noah then. Maybe she had two babies. One was Noah and one was Agnes. Because we don't know who their parents are.
I thought she said it was a son, but maybe she did. Maybe
I would have to really search my notes to find.
Well, that's a pretty specific reference, though, in the name.
Yeah, Innes and Agnes.
She definitely has to do with
Yeah, like they have to be connected in some way. And, that was one of the things that we wrote down, too, is that, like, Innes basically disappeared from season 2. We barely ever see the 2020 version of Innes in that season, if at all. I don't know if we even see her in season 2. And the only time we see her is in the 1980s, and she's drugging Mikkel and trying to keep him and keep him in that timeline. But we don't see her very much, considering what a big role she plays.
Yeah, that's odd.
Yeah. And so, if Innes did end up being Agnes's mother, that would make Mikkel her, what do we got? Let's see. So it's her like great grandson that she then adopts. So if Agnes is her daughter and Trante is Agnes's son, that would mean that Innes would be Trante's grandmother, which would mean Ulrich's great grandmother, which would mean Mikkel's great grandmother.
Yeah, and it's just like you go back to all that and you think, like, what would Jonas killing himself affect from that? And it's just like he's too knotted up in this. Like one person cannot change anything. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that is definitely something to watch. Is what do we get between Agnes and Innes? And they're almost kind of reversed, right? In season 1, we got a lot of Innes and barely any Agnes. And in season 2, we get a lot of Agnes and barely any Innes.
Yeah, and I mean the names are so close too. They're just 2 letters off.
Well,
I guess not.
Not really, but they have the same ending though. NES at the end. Nintendo Entertainment System.
Yeah, just a different first syllable.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought that was awesome to see that. I don't really want to research any other names just because I don't want to ruin anything potentially, but that's one that's really hard to just look past, I think.
Yeah, I know I brought up with Peter that in the Bible, Peter is like known as one of the people who I believe betrays Jesus and has like a very irredeemable sin that he ends up making salvation and redemption for throughout his story. So I think that that's one of the things I really definitely do anticipate as we move forward is a pretty big hero moment for Peter.
For Peter.
I think Peter's going to have a huge hero moment in this season.
Okay, so let's talk about Peter. I want to talk about the ancillary characters. So we have these characters. I mean, Peter is connected still, but we have Peter, we have Clausen, we have Waller, we have Bernadette, we have Alexander, just the people who are not yet, like, we don't know much about who they are and where they're from. And I think I mean, we have to get something. Like, we spent so much time with Clausen in the last season that if the whole thing was just because Alexander may have murdered his brother and then he gets blown up in that blast and that's it for Clausen, like, we have to get more from this guy.
I agree.
And same with Waller. I mean, yeah, I know I've talked about Waller losing his eye, and yes, maybe that's nothing. Maybe that's just a red herring, but I mean, it's definitely like they did change it from like he did have a fresh wound with a bandage in season 1 to then having a more permanent sunglass fixture in season 2. And we also found out that Waller's sister is Bernadette, who Peter was seeing. So, yeah, I don't know if you have any other thoughts on those characters or things you like from those characters.
I don't know. I really don't know. Bernadette, I agree, plays a role. I think Francesca knows more than she's leading on. She's also someone who I don't think we know a lot about. And she's like one of the kind of main characters, but I feel like we haven't been told much about her. And I think she's more leading Magnus than Magnus is leading her. So I think we find out more about her, too, in this season. And who she is to Charlotte and who she is to Elizabeth, really. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it's one thing that's interesting is we know Elizabeth's place, and Elizabeth is not only her mother's mother, she is that whole connection, but it just seems weird that then they just have the one daughter, Francisca, and there's no real connection between Francisca and Elizabeth. Like, does Francisca end up being somebody important's mother?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, who is she? Like, yeah.
So one thing I saw somebody say, and I can't remember who it was, might have been a couple people who said this, is that what if Francisca and Magnus are Agnes's parents? Because, in that time, in the 1921 time, when the church is, she's a little girl, and they're about the age that they would have had a young daughter, especially, like, basically Magnus is the same age as Ulrich. So could it be that they're Agnes and Noah's parents?
Yeah, definitely, but I'm not sure what the implications of that would be.
Well, if Francisca is Noah's mother, and Noah marries her sister, and fathers her mother, I mean that really
just further knots it up.
And then if Magnus is Agnes's mother or Agnes's father, then Agnes is his own like great grandfather. Like what we were just saying.
Magnus is Agnes's?
Magnus is Agnes. Yeah. Magnus is Agnes's dad. And Agnes.
Magnus, Agnes. Yeah, definitely.
So
I think that's it. I think that almost has to be.
That Magnus and Francisca are Agnes and Noah's
They go back to like the 1888 or whatever time. Or,
they don't even have to go back that far because in 1921, I mean, I guess, yeah, they would have to go back to like 1900 or.
That's what I'm saying. I think they go back to 1888. Or whatever.
Like 33 years before.
I think it's 33 years because I think there's some sort of like master time machine that starts at then. That's similar to the one from.
So I don't think that they can go back that far because Agnes and Noah are not 33 years old in 1921. Okay. Agnes definitely isn't, and Noah is like a teenager. So, I mean, maybe they go back and they have them at that time, but then move forward in time and like. There could be, I mean, they could have them at any time and then bring them back to 1921, right? They could have them in the future and then bring the whole family back to 1921 and then leave them at that orphanage or wherever they live.
Yeah. With Erna.
Yeah, I do think that I like Ines being Agnes's mother, but Magnus and Francisca being the parents just makes, like, it just knots everything up so much that it makes me think that would be more likely.
Yeah, I mean, this is a show where I think that by the end of it, things could be more knotted up than ever.
Oh, for sure.
So I don't think it's a show where it has to end everything and solve everything and have you understand every single aspect, especially on the first watch. And so I think that's one of the things that's really encouraging about this show never getting to the critical mass that Game of Thrones was at, is that Game of Thrones became a different show as the critical mass grew. This show has not ever it's become its own different show on its own terms, though, I think. So I don't think it's going into this third season wanting to clear everything up. I don't know if that's even possible. it may just further jumble things up.
Yeah. Well, to further jumble things up, let's keep talking about Noah. And we have a question from John, which is he's one of my friends that was like super excited to rewatch this show. I think he burned through a whole season in like a day, which again we don't support that. We say digest it. But John says I was texting him earlier, and he said one question that comes to mind is, do you think Noah is originally from the other world? For some reason, that picture with him and Charlotte as a baby seems like it wasn't taken in a war-torn post-apocalyptic world, which would be the only time in which Elizabeth would have had Charlotte. So when and what world is Noah originally from, and how did Elizabeth make it to that world? So I can respond to that first if you since I already read that.
Yeah, go ahead.
My initial thought is that those are Polaroids that she's looking at. So I think that those pictures are from the past. I don't think that those pictures, I think, again, like this could be a situation where Noah and Elizabeth travel back in time, have a baby at a different time period, and then travel forward.
Yeah, because I mean, they talk about when they had the baby, how no one thought the baby was going to make it. So this probably was at a time when child delivering techniques were a little less reliable.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, they're definitely like sepia tone Polaroids, and maybe in this other world, but Polaroid is like a thing and pictures are a thing. But that would seem to me that it's either the 55. I think it's either 55 or 86. When and of course, Charlotte is like a teenager in the 86 timeline. So maybe that picture was taken in like 78 or something like that, sometime in the 70s when she was a baby.
Yeah, it could be.
So, but the idea of Noah coming from another world, maybe Noah and Agnes coming from another world, that could be another potential place where they could have come from, right? If they came from this other world and then traveled to 1921. But I think it's more so, like you were saying, probably that it's a mirror world, not that there's not people who exist in only one or the other. There's versions of people in both.
Yeah.
Although maybe Alexander came from, maybe there are people who only exist in that mirror world, and the Alexander Clausen thing was all something that happened in the other universe. Could that be the case?
I don't think anything exists in the mirror world that doesn't exist in this world. That would be my theory.
Okay, but what about Martha's wig, her hair?
I think just things are different. They're just, yeah, I don't know. I just think things are different, but everybody is still in maybe someone else's role in this other world, but everybody is in the same role. Everybody's in a different role, but in someone else's role.
Do you think Jonas exists in both worlds? Because I feel like, if anything, like at least Jonas doesn't exist in the mirror world.
Yeah, but I guess I don't know what that would. I don't know, honestly. I would say no. That would be my prediction, is that he doesn't, because he doesn't belong in this world. So in the mirror world where he isn't, Claudia has been there because she says, "I've seen a world without you."
Right, and that's what makes me think that's the mirror world, unless there's multiple mirror. I mean, there probably could be infinite other universes, because if you change one thing, you create.
Well, think about like a mirror's
like Back to the Future Part 2 was an alternate world, for example.
Yeah, and they reference Back to the Future also.
Right.
Think about a mirror's reflection within a mirror within a mirror. So I mean, it's endless reflections once you enter the reflection of the reflection. So could be that kind of world too. I don't know.
Well, and we don't. So the thing is that we don't know about Jonas, which is, he's one of the only characters we don't really know this about. We don't know anything about him besides the fact that he gets older and becomes Adam. So we haven't seen anything about any kids that he has. We haven't even speculated that, like, oh, could Adam have been Agnes and Noah's dad? Like, we're not speculating at all that Adam or the stranger or Jonas have any offspring. So really, if you remove Jonas, what you remove is, you don't really remove any offspring from this. You do remove him leading Mikkel back in time, which removes Michael. But again, you're just taking off like a branch, but this branch isn't really, like, it would be, if you took out Elizabeth from this, you eliminate a huge chunk of the character chart. But if you just take out Jonas, you don't actually eliminate that much.
So maybe the lie that Jonas is telling himself is that he is the center to this world, when really he isn't.
Yeah, that could be because I mean I'm just looking at my character chart right now, and it's like very visual to me, and it's like if you took Claudia out of this, you knock out a whole ton of people. Or if you even if we're saying Magnus could potentially be his own, could be Agnes's father. If you take Magnus out of this, Magnus, who's we've made fun of for how little he does, that actually impacts a whole line of people. Where we don't have any line coming off of Jonas, and we really don't have any line coming off of Hannah yet either, unless we find out more about Hannah and Egon and their time together.
Yeah. I mean, it could just be a big part of the third season is Jonas realizing the stories he's told himself about being so important and vital and everything are actually not true.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting. But I do think, I am very interested to see what we get from Noah and Elizabeth. We do have Noah is dead. The older version of Noah is dead, but we do have the younger Noah, and we also have time traveling Noah around. Mm-hmm. So, I would like to see how their story progresses, and if there's got to be some reason why they gave up Charlotte, because it seems like what they did was they had Charlotte and they couldn't keep her for whatever reason, probably something related to Adam, and then they had to split up. It again reminds me of Star Wars, like a Princess Leia type thing, or Rey from the newer Star Wars.
Yeah, I can see that.
All right, so let's see, where should we go next? Do you want to talk a little bit about Claudia?
Sure.
The Tiedemanns? All right, so Amanda says, this is a more straightforward question, which is nice. I don't think we've had very many of those. She said she's wondering now that Claudia has disappeared and Egon is dead, who takes care of Regina? She seems too young to live alone. Where does Alexander live?
This could be maybe the tragic end for Regina, is that she kind of dies alone.
Well, that Regina, though, she's talking about teenage Regina.
Oh, right. Okay, I thought she was talking about the one from 2020.
No, because she actually reunites with Claudia, and they're in the bunker going somewhere.
That's right.
So we are going to get it, which is interesting because if you think about the White Devil, Claudia, the White Devil version of Claudia, she has spent this time with her dying daughter Regina. So they are going to get time together in this bunker, at least for a little bit. And that's going to inform the way that older Claudia is going to.
So they're asking about teenage Regina. Then.
Right. So when Claudia disappears with Jonas at the end of episode 7, after Egon has died, and that was one of the things I brought up too, is I said, like, that sucks for Regina. Like, her grandfather died and her mother just dropped off the face of the earth and is missing. And so then what happens to her? I think that
probably just goes with Alexander.
Yeah, she just goes and lives with Alexander, or actually Alexander comes to their house, right? Because it's the same house.
Alexander just moves in, basically.
Right.
And he was like a few years older, and he had already started to get his ins at the power plant by working there and finding out the secrets he does or protecting the secrets he does. So that's the leverage he has to end up getting the job behind Claudia's back without her knowing. Because when Claudia comes back, you'll remember she finds out that Alexander Tiedemann is running the power plant, and she has no idea how.
Right, she was surprised by that.
So,
yeah. I think that's probably the most likely. Now, where was Alexander living before this? I don't think we really know.
I think we have to find out. There's like a few have to find out things. There's not a lot the show has to explain. They have to explain.
Yeah. I think they definitely have to explain Alexander and what his backstory is, where he was coming from. There is like I said, there is a disconnect between if it's 33 years in June since that murder took place, why was he running in the fall the year before? 33 years in June of 2019. So when we see the episode where it's June 21st, 2019, the news article says that murder took place 33 years before. But when we first meet teenage Alexander, he's running in the forest, and it's October of that year. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's not exactly 33 years, but it would be weird if they were talking about something being 33 years unsolved, if it was really only 32 and a half years.
Yeah, or like whatever he was doing in whatever time when he's running away, maybe Adam gives him the opportunity, says you have to travel this time because he knew, or whoever knew, that they had to be there so that he could save Regina and end up being with her.
Didn't he seem to know time. When he arrived, he went right to the power plant and talked to Claudia like he knew her? Mm-hmm. So could he have been sent by older Claudia?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
What are some other have to knows that you have to find out the answer to? I can give you some of the things we wrote down if that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'd like to definitely. I'd like to know what happened with Greta, who's Helga's father, Helge's father.
Yeah, I think we need to know both who Helge's father is and how is Helge related to Peter. Also, like what
Yeah,
is that relationship?
yeah. Where was Peter? Where did Peter come from in 1987?
Hmm.
Who's Helge's lover to have Peter or adopt Peter? So basically, I think Peter is a big mystery for me. Bernadette, I'm okay if there's a little mystery with her and Wooler. Honestly,
So
there
here's
just
one
might
thing I
be.
just realized, and probably isn't related, but I wrote down Burned and also wrote down Bernadette, and their names are very similar.
Yeah,
Now I don't think Bernadette is burned, but do you think it's just a coincidence that their names are so similar?
yeah, maybe. I don't know. I feel like there's maybe no coincidences, or there's a lot. I'm not really sure. I don't know what to really think of Bernadette. I do feel like there's a significant amount of interaction between Bernadette and Francesca,
Hmm.
which makes me wonder, including like Francesca standing between the trailers staring at Bernadette at one point.
Right.
Then
Watching
obviously,
her father go in there.
yeah, so there's something going on there. So
Yeah, I think so. I think it can't just be that Bernadette is somebody that Peter had a relationship with, is a woman Peter had a relationship with.
yeah,
Um,
I think something about Peter having a relationship with him is going to make it extra fucked up, like it's his son or daughter, something.
mhm. Yeah, that would make sense.
So
And I did see somebody speculating, could Helge be his own father? So could Helge travel back in
yeah,
time and
definitely.
sleep with Greta?
Mhm.
But I think, I mean, I see that maybe because they seem to have that very weird sexual relationship when he's a kid, that like
Yeah,
he seems like he's been abused. But Greta would 100% know that it's him because it's a man with the exact same facial disfigurement as her son.
which is
Well,
exactly why she wants to disown him so bad and thinks
actually,
he's
no,
like,
and it would have been before, if she would
yeah,
have met Helge, it would have been before she had the baby. So
yep.
never mind, she wouldn't know about that facial disfigurement.
No, and this may like explain the deep-seated hatred she has for him and why she thinks he's such a demon of this world.
Because he came from somebody who has that facial
Mhm.
disfigurement or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, exactly. Like she knows once he has that's him. Maybe
Well,
I don't know,
she had issues with him before he disappeared.
but that's what I'm saying. It was like it was always there. It's kind of mirroring or symbolic of like parental resentment for a child.
Hmm.
But then these are like the real reasons why they become more context as the future unfolds.
Mm. Yeah, so that, and if Bernadette and Burned are somehow related, so
Hmm.
Burned is Helge's adopted father, and if Bernadette is Peter's lover, so there could be like that could be kind of an incestuous relationship if they went there with that.
Yeah, nice.
All right, what about Tronte? Do you have anything that you like? I feel like we just don't know anything about Tronte except that he worked with Peter to hide the bodies, and then it's alluded to that he had an affair with Claudia.
I'm shocked. As much as we don't know about Trante, we don't know anything about Jana.
True. Yeah.
She is, I think, another I have to learn about in the final season is basically her and Trante.
Hmm.
I got to learn more about them. I need some context to why she switches the figures. I need an answer to that. That's one of the things that has driven me so. Like, what is that doing?
Hmm.
They show it. Like, why is she switching a figure from a tombstone? I want
Yeah, it's
answers to
like something
that.
I forgot that even happened because it happened in season one, and
It
then we
was
never heard
so key,
anything about
though.
it.
It was
Yeah.
just so key. Like, and then Jana was gone, but Jana was about to leave Tronte, and then she chose not to. And I feel like there's like several relationships like that where one of the partners is ready to leave the other one, and then something happens that causes them to stay.
Hmm.
So I need more information on Tronte and Jana. Um, you know, yeah,
I'd like to
definitely.
know. I mean, we've talked about it a little bit, but Enos's baby too. That was a passing comment, but I just feel like that has to be important. So she had a baby that she claimed died. I feel like if you don't see the body, you don't
Mhm.
know if that baby ever died. So,
Yeah.
all right, here is a question from Rupesh, not Rupert, Rupesh on Twitter. He said, "What are the motivations of the major travelers on this show? Adam, Jonas, Stranger, Claudia, Noah. What is the end result that they wish to achieve before doing everything that they're doing? I have a hard time keeping track. Yes, I think we all do.
Yeah,
That's kind of
the
a bigger
idea.
picture question. And we've talked about Adam. We've talked about Jonas and the Stranger. We've talked about Noah. I mean, I guess, what do you think? Do you want to talk about Noah or Claudia? Like, maybe just pick one of those to really dive into.
Yeah, we talked about Noah a little bit. Let's go to Claudia.
Okay, Claudia. So what do you think Claudia's motivations are? I mean, she dedicates her entire life to this, to time
Seems
travel.
like everything is about protecting Regina and correcting her mistakes with Regina and bettering her family's position in Wyndon. That seems like her motivations.
Which would make sense if she ends up if she's the one who sends Alexander back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's almost like the Terminator, right? Like, she's sending Alexander back in time to protect her daughter, and they're going to fall in love.
Yep.
Which, like
that's very simple. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. So here's another one from our friend Adrian Colley. And he said, another ancillary character that we've not brought up, and I know she's one of your favorites. Who will Scarface be when she's 33 years older? 33 years older than she is. There are not many unaccounted for middle-aged women in this story. Now that Scarface has seen the time travel happen, it would a narrative certainty that she's going to travel through time. And he says it would be nice to see Jonas greet her sometime when she arrives before clonking her, just like she did to him at the end of season 1.
It says like "Welcome to the past."
Yeah, he put it in German, which I didn't want to try to pronounce.
Yeah, I think that she's somehow related to Martha and Jonas.
Martha and Jonas.
Maybe she's Martha and Jonas's child from the alt world.
That would make a lot of sense, actually.
But she looks so much like Martha, yet she isn't Martha. The scars on the face, we've seen a few characters with scars on their face. So we saw Noah.
But we haven't seen anybody with a scar like her. We haven't seen anybody with a scar that big, correct?
I mean, Noah had a pretty big one when he was younger, like across his face. And I think a few, but that is the most pronounced one, I think. But I think she's somehow related to Jonas and Martha.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. We haven't seen any offspring from them. It would make sense that we get that. I don't think Jonas is going to never have any kids, although Adam still seems hung up with dead Martha. So, maybe he never got over her and never had kids.
Yeah.
All right. So, and another one from Aiden, he said, speaking of Martha, is Martha in a wig the same as the Martha who wrote the letter?
Oh.
We did have that letter that showed up in the finale, and the stranger, did the stranger, no, Noah gave that to the stranger. When did Martha write that letter? Because Martha wrote that letter having known all of these reveals. We never saw Martha write that letter, and somebody in 2020 wouldn't write a letter like that. So,
yeah, I'm not sure.
Could that be sent from alternate universe Martha? I think that's an interesting theory.
Yeah, or someone posing as Martha. I just never trust the letters, just because someone could so easily pretend to be that person.
Yeah, I think we always have to trust the letters because otherwise it's like, what can you trust? It's like you're seeing this. I mean, it could like anything could be falsified.
That's true.
Yeah, Jonas finds out a lot of information through letters on this show. And then to follow up on that, there is no try on YouTube. He also said that if Martha turns up at the end is from an alternate timeline, she is the Jonas of the mirrored universe, like was what you said. And he says that what if there are alternate versions of every character in season 3, with old Martha being the corresponding Eve to Jonas's Adam?
It seems that would be my theory, basically.
So there's 2 worlds, one that's run by Adam, one that's run by Adam, one that's run by Eve, pretty much.
Yeah, maybe the third has neither. I don't know. Maybe the third is nothing. Maybe the third is where time doesn't exist.
Well, I guess the third could be the serpent. That's the only really third character in that story.
Yeah.
And we did see Noah with the apple, like the serpent. And I think going to the biblical name Noah, now Noah builds the ark and brings 2 of every animal on it. You could really look at that bunker as being Noah's ark. Now, I don't know if you could do 2. Well, you really could do 2 of every. So you have Elizabeth and Peter in there, and you have Claudia and Bernadette in there. And do you have anybody else in the bunker besides Noah?
Claudia and Regina.
Yeah, what did I say? Claudia and Bernadette?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Claudia and Regina.
Regina could be Bernadette. I haven't gone down that theory yet.
No, not yet. So I mean, that actually is that bunker is like Noah's Ark, pretty much, because there's pairs.
Doesn't he refer to it as Noah's Ark at one point with Helge? He says, "I'm building an ark" as he's working on the time machine in the bunker.
Yes, and that version of Noah. I meant young Noah.
Yeah, but
I forgot that they were in the bunker. I kind of forgot that Noah has a whole thing with the bunker.
Yeah, and the stranger talks about how the bunker is the time machine, not just the chair necessarily.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's shown by when people travel through time. We see the portal show up too in the bunker.
Mm-hmm.
So, and speaking of the bunker, what is the gold watch for? The one that is inscribed for Charlotte, but is given to Elizabeth by Noah in season 1. He says maybe it was made by Tannhaus, and that's why it says for Charlotte.
Yeah, that could be.
It's also a clock, because it's a watch. So I think that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, that would make sense.
All right, so now we just have some kind of big picture end things to talk about, and I have some questions for you. So let's see. Who is your prediction for MVP at the end of this? Not for the overall show, because Jonas is already in the lead, but if you had to pick who your MVP for season 3 alone is going to be. Do you have a pick?
Martha.
Martha. All right. And Martha, of course, does not have a single MVP point yet.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait, no. She got one in the finale. She has one MVP point.
Yeah, I think Jonas maybe take a much more of a back seat in this final season than we're anticipating.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
well, I think if you think about...
Maybe a lot of Jonas's story has been told.
Yeah, if you think about the first season is really about the Conwalds, and the second season is really about the Tiedemans. I mean, everybody's story is told, but we got a ton more about the Tiedemans in season 2. So, if season 3 was the Nielsen's, that would actually make sense on a lot of levels, because it would get us more information about Agnes, more information about Martha, Magnus, Francisca. So
yeah, and the other thing that is always kind of just while we're on the subject of the Nielsen's, I've never figured out a way to bring this up, but Magnus doesn't look related to Mikkel or Martha.
Mm-hmm.
He looks so different from them. And I get like Katerina kind of has blonde hair, but like his hair is like platinum blonde and he's like tall, pale, like, and every other family looks so like they belong together. Magnus doesn't look like, and they have that weird scene in the first season when Magnus and Martha are like just like cuddling in bed together, and just like, don't touch me with your feet, otherwise we can like. I was like, that's not how brothers and sisters are.
Not that I know of.
Like, and it's like Magnus and Martha, you put them next to each other, you're like, they're brother and sister. Most people would go, no, they're not. Mm-hmm. And definitely from a show like this where you see siblings look so similar and see families look so similar. So I don't know what that means, but I'm just bringing that up.
Yeah, no, that is true, because they do really cast people to look similar to each other, and so to have somebody who really sticks out like that.
Yeah, he's not that great of an actor. Like, so it's not like, I mean,
well,
like,
he doesn't have much to work with. Also,
he's one of like the most doofy, worst. Like, he sticks out.
Yeah,
he sticks out
like a sore thumb.
Yeah, like
kind of looks like a thumb.
You've never really had to like say, no matter where in the timeline it is, that's Magnus. You can tell he's so weird looking.
Well, and he even has that look, the future version of Magnus.
Mm-hmm.
It started looking more like Jeff Daniels. That's all.
Yeah. So I don't know, like, if that's a sign that Martha also doesn't belong in the original world. Maybe Martha and Jonas don't belong there. We've always just been thinking of how one person doesn't belong there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Or maybe Jonas and Magnus get together. I'm not sure. But there's something going on.
Yeah. Well, I do think that at the end of the season, we saw Francisca, assuming that's Francisca and Magnus, doing something where they were turning on the time machine together when Adam was already gone. And maybe it was just that they were bringing Adam back, but I think I could see that those two are plotting against Adam in some way. Yeah, and
I would love for the MVP, though, of the season to be Bartos. I would love
Bartos.
That.
Okay.
I would love. That's who I'm rooting for. He's my Theon of this show. If just to fill in people on Game of Thrones a little bit here, it's a Game of Thrones character for one. If you don't know, I assume most people do. Yeah. Theon was my favorite character before it was cool for Theon to be everybody's.
You were a
favorite
Theon
character.
hipster.
I was a Theon hipster when he got every step of the way. I won't spoil in case, but I mean, I still name my creative players in video games Theon Greyjoy. He is like he's my video game character in movies and shows.
He's like the best quarterback in Madden history.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Theon Greyjoy plays for the Tampa Bay Bucks right now. We're in the middle of our season.
Oh,
so
so he really is the GOAT then.
Yeah, so, exactly. So, but I would just love for this bumbling idiot who everybody thinks is just so gullible and doesn't like to end up being like a huge role. I'd also really like, I don't think this is going to happen, but I want more HG.
Yeah, we have to get more HG.
I want to find out he's like a bastard. I would really love to find out he's really, really terrible.
Like not literally a bastard. You mean like a
really terrible
Game of Thrones. So when you say bastard, it's confusing.
It's like a really terrible, like much more aware of the role he was playing than it's been portrayed so far. So I don't know. I would just like to have characters that we've had one complete steady image of flipped, and not just flipped for flip's sake though. So it's like I'm asking a lot here from this show.
Right. Well, I think
it will come through.
With Bartos, I mean, we have to get, I would imagine, confirmation that Bartos is the caveman from the beginning of season 2.
Yeah.
Although it almost, to me, I mean, maybe they would go with that, but it seems like it's so obvious. Like, I've had people that have told me that, they start watching season 2, they're like, okay, so that's for sure Bartos, right? So
I mean, it looks like older Bartos.
Yeah, it looks exactly like Bartos. So
he's got the same kind of hair. Like that, like they really look similar.
And it would make sense with the way Bartos and Noah had that relationship in season 1, where Noah is leading Bartos, to then have it flipped and Bartos is leading Noah through the tunnel.
Yeah,
I feel like that narratively that makes sense. That's another one of those, like, it wouldn't be like a huge reveal. It wouldn't be a huge surprise if it's a reveal, but we just need to like find out how that role factors in.
Yeah, I agree.
So my MVP choice is I had it picked out. Oh, Elizabeth is who I think I could see being the MVP of season 3, because I think there could be a whole lot with Elizabeth and Noah and whatever they're doing between when Noah's a kid and Noah's an adult. But my underrated MVP that I would like to see is Hannah. Talking about a character who could be flipped, that we see maybe not Hannah turn into like this good character, but I'd like to see what all happens between Hannah and Egon. That I think is like such an interesting thing that I remembered from season 2. And we really didn't talk about it at all in this episode. We didn't see any of them in the finale, but the fact that Hannah goes back to the 50s and is with Egon, I want to see what happens with that. Is she going to end up being the dead lady in the water that we heard?
100%. That is my stone cold deadlock theory. Is that she gets drowned by Egon at that lake, and she's like the story that Bartos is talking about with Martha.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Deadlock. I will know it's the theory as soon as they show a shot of her putting on the Christopher pendant. Mm-hmm. Once they show that, I will put my hands up and say I was fucking right. I'm waiting for that shot. I wouldn't be surprised if that's in the promotional material. It's like a shot of her with that pendant on.
Yeah.
Which, again, is why I don't want to look at any of that shit. Because I would pick that up and I'd be like, man, you might as well just tell me it's her. Ship it. That is the only theory I will guarantee.
I like that theory. I agree with that. If I had to think of like what my stone cold lock would be, I'm sure I've said one on here that I would really like to agree with. I can't think of anything off the top of my head because my brain is kind of fried from talking about this show. So I'm just going to say that the baby that Innes said that she lost is going to end up being somebody important.
Okay, that's fair. That's a little bit safe, but all right.
I mean, no, it's not, because she brought
Say who the fucking baby is.
Well, I mean, it could be Agnes. It could be Tron.
Helge. It could be Peter.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it could be Peter. It could be Alexander. I don't.
HG.
Yeah,
it just comes out with a big fro. It's like, oh, it's HG.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know. I'll think if I can think of a better one. But my brain is a little fried.
That's the only one I got. That's the only one I got.
All right. Well, we talked about actors. So Drina on Twitter mentions that Danish actor Mads Mikkelsen, who we've brought up the fact that there is Mads and there's Mikkel. They're so similar. There's an actor with that exact name, and I think he kind of looks like Ulrich as well.
Yeah, people brought this up a ton.
He plays a character named Michael Kohlhaas. She didn't say where. But Michael Kohlhaas, and is married to Hannah, Hanne. So that's just a fun. Maybe it's a coincidence, maybe not.
Well, I mean, just to go along that line, Yassine's last name is Frize in this, and that is the last name of one of the creators of the show. The John Jantje. I don't know how to say the first name, but it's not Barn Odar, but the other creator. So, I mean, it might just be, a little wink and a nod for the creator. We're going to put this kid, but it is pointed out when that kid is taken back to the 50s. He's one of the real keys to like tipping everybody off to how weird this is, because he was Mediterranean, they said, and all these things, like he doesn't belong in this world. So maybe there's a third world, which is the real world. This maybe gets extremely, extremely meta, and the third world is our world.
I mean,
and we're in it.
To be fair, the show is very meta, and it did predict that there was an apocalypse on June 27th, 2020, and like the actual state of the world on June 25th, 2020 is not that great. So
yeah, we'll see how it is.
Like very creepy. I know, I'm a little scared for Saturday.
And also, I mean, we have references to like Back to the Future in this show and other pop culture, but I'm pretty sure that the pop culture that's explicitly shown in the show isn't real. Like the Captain Future comic that Mikkel is reading, I don't think that's a real comic. So I guess you can look it up for me.
Captain Future is a TV program.
Is it a real comic?
Yeah, from 1978 to 1979. So it was a cartoon. They used to make comics based off a cartoon.
Okay, well then that debunks that. Yeah. I was hoping that maybe like that was a fake comic, and because then I'd be like, why wouldn't he have like Captain America in that scene or something? Since they've already made pop culture references. But.
Yeah, and I will say there's not really a way to show people this, but we did have somebody who reached out to both of us under the Twitter username @TheGeekSteve. And he sent us a bunch of really cool contexts, some German-related contexts that he has. So he is in Berlin, and he sent us different songs. I don't want to list them all, but he sent off different songs. He talked about the Ryder Bar and how it was renamed Twix in 1991.
Which I picked up on.
Yeah, and he mentioned how the small German town is spot on, exactly what you would expect for a town like that. The music that plays in Bernadette's trailer. So if you just look up The Geek Steve on Twitter and look for his tweet to us from the morning of June 25th, 2020, you can see some of the different things that he's mentioned and the context related to the German elements of this show.
Yep.
I think that's definitely, that was helpful for both of us to see that, and we appreciated him sending it. All right, couple other things. Probably got about 5 more minutes before we wrap this up. What is your favorite time frame? Like your favorite year that we see scenes from? Do you have a favorite?
I would say I really I've enjoyed the 80s the most, I think. But I really like the days before Michael's suicide. The colorfulness of it, how I actually liked when the world seemed to be working well, and it like was
maybe that's what the alternate world will be like.
It seemed like the most in order there, and it kind of was nice to see everybody a little bit happier. So I would say those two would probably be my favorite.
I really like the 50s and the 80s too, but I think that's when I really got into this show, was when we started seeing the past of these. I definitely prefer the past to the future. The stuff in 2052 really didn't interest me very much in season 2. It's a little bit better on the rewatch because I knew who some of the characters were, and I'm sure like knowing it, if we see it in season 3, like we'll have more context around it. But just like the dark, depressing post-apocalyptic future was really boring to me compared to, I thought like seeing 1955 and seeing young Egon in 1955 and the kid versions of some of these adults. That was really interesting. So that was my favorite.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. These are my questions. The MVP question was mine. The favorite time frame was mine. Another question I wrote for you. Do you have any predictions of titles for episodes this season?
Everything is okay.
Everything is okay.
Title
is that the finale? Everything is okay.
Yes. Yep.
Everything is awful is the title of episode 1, and everything is okay is the title of the finale.
Yep. Everything is okay. Hug emoji.
I could see us getting an episode that is titled either Infinity or just the Infinity symbol.
I keep rooting for this show to pull a Breaking Bad and have the whole season spell out a sentence.
Oh yeah. Oh, that is one of the best like elements of a TV show.
Can never be done again.
No.
Now that they've done it, it can never be done again.
Well, though they did actually do it in Better Call Saul. They did.
Well, that's fair.
Not quite as explicitly, but there is the episode titles do spell something out in Better Call Saul.
Every time someone tells me how I need to watch Better Call Saul, it resets the clock.
Resets the timeline. I will say this last season was great, so reset it.
Reset the clock. And when someone says it's better than Breaking Bad, I double reset it.
Yeah, well, that's just incorrect. That's a wrong.
Well, I hear it all the time because people have to justify why they've committed
it's
this show.
It's a good show. It's
better than Breaking Bad. I hear it all the time, and I'm like, okay, whatever.
Well, we do have to start thinking, and this is something that people want to send us suggestions. We got to figure out what we're going to do after dark is over. Either rewatching a show.
I love rewatch. Maybe a Bored to Death rewatch on HBO. People, we'd love to
Succession
recap.
Was where I was thinking Succession.
That's more Oz rewatch.
That's a lot of episods. Is my only problem.
I would totally do it.
Yeah.
But
all right.
Any other questions before we wrap up?
Let's see. Yeah. So we have. Another one that I wrote. If you had to rewatch this show starting tomorrow, is there anything particular you would be looking for?
No.
No. I mean,
I've looked at everything.
I feel like there are certain things I would track better. I would try to track some of the books and letters a little bit better, and the machines. But even though I was trying to track them this last time, it still was kind of hard to follow. So,
no, not for me. I wrote 100 pages of notes. Right. It's like the 7th or 8th time I've watched the series.
Yeah, that's true. Well, now
I've actually gotten to a point.
Now we need to re-listen to all the podcasts and do podcasts about the podcasts and
the recap,
right and wrong. Yeah,
good idea.
All right, so we have 2 more questions about the ending of this show, which I think is an appropriate place to end this podcast. So the first is that's not even a question. It is from Lady of the Lake 2211. I hope that this will not end up as a weird dream of Jonas in the mental hospital.
Yeah, I doubt it.
Yeah, me too. That would not be good. And a related question from our friend Brendan Fitzpatrick. He said, what would be the most disappointing way for this show to end?
That they're in the Matrix.
They're in the Matrix. Oh, that's like a simulation.
If it's a simulation, I can't take that with another show with a ton of heart of mine. Mm-hmm. I won't talk about the other show, but I tried to really justify the ending, and everything else but that ending was great. They should have stopped it at the therapy appointment episode. I'll say that much. But
I think I know what show you're talking about.
Yeah,
Oh, wait! I thought you liked the end of that show.
No, I've came to the realization that
I'm going to bleep what you just said. Also,
yeah.
I'm just gonna bleep one part of it because just for people who haven't seen it.
Yeah, I came to the realization. Yeah, I liked the journey much more than the destination, and I do anticipate that could happen with this show just because of how good the journey's been. But I'm gonna trust it until it gives me a reason otherwise. But if season 3 ends similarly to season 2 with a little bit of a, I could see that happening.
Mm-hmm. Even though season 2 ended with a bang.
But it was a bang that I'm not sure I liked, and I'm not sure I want, and I'm not sure they're going to be able to figure out in 8 episodes, I think. But I also trust it. I'm just worried. I've gotten burned by a lot of shows I love.
Burned?
At the end.
Did you say burned?
Burned. Yeah, burned Doppler.
Yeah. So I will say that, I think for me, I don't think there's a specific thing that could make it disappointing. I think if it was the kind of thing where I have to like constantly defend the ending of this show like I do with Lost, that would not be very fun. I would like it just to be something that, people can accept and it gives good closure. And I think it's the fear I have going into season 3 is that like there is a lot to do in one season to do it. And so if we end with a whole lot of these ancillary things not being answered, loose ends not being tied up, just being unsatisfied, I think that would be what would be most disappointing for me.
Yeah, I'd rather have more questions than answers by the end.
You'd rather more see? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It just needs to be done.
If they're forcing answers, I don't want it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but again, I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think there will be a lumberjack incident.
See, that's what I thought. That's the show I thought you were talking about earlier.
Well, that show had 4 seasons that decided to shit the legacy of the show.
Yeah,
if you ever watched Dexter,
for a long time you told me to watch Dexter, and then I was like,
I mean, you should still watch. You should still watch Dexter season 1 through 4. Pretend season 4 is the series finale. It will be one of. It would have been one of the better series of the 2000s if they did that. If they ended it at season 4 the way it was, which would have been, if you ever do watch it, I really do recommend it. It's a fun show to watch. It's easy to watch. It's not like this show, honestly, where you could have your phone out watching Dexter.
That's always nice.
But, I mean, it's like very colorful. It's got good humor. It's got good acting. But if you pretend the 4 seasons, the end of it, it's the peak of the show. And the way it ends leaves you with so many questions that they go on to answer to fucking death. And it's just like, for a show about serial killers, it's very ironic how much they murdered that show.
Oh, maybe that was the point. It's very meta.
Yeah, it might be. But again, if you watch Dexter, if you haven't watched Dexter, it's on Netflix. Watch it through season 4. Pretend that's the series finale, and you're going to love the show. All right. But on this dark podcast, we're ending with a Dexter.
Right. Yeah. Well, I was going to say, so I liked having the questions about the ending at the end, but I don't want to end this podcast about what we'd be disappointed for. So let's just end it with this. What are you most excited for Saturday?
I'm most excited to. I'm most excited to. I don't know. I don't think there's one answer for that for me. I'm most excited to just get back to figuring out how the ending is the beginning, because I still, as much as they say that, I'm looking forward to understanding just overall these lines that keep getting repeated that I still don't get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I am most looking forward to hitting play on episode 1, and I'm going to really try to savor each episode because it's going to go very fast. Before you know it, we're going to be halfway through the season, and then we're going to be done with the season. So I'm just, trying to savor our time watching this show and talking about this show because it's very fun.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. So, all right. So that wraps up our season 3 preview / Q&A show. Thank you, everybody who sent in feedback. Keep sending in your feedback throughout the season as you watch episodes. If you can stay at our pace, that's awesome. We love having people watch along with us. If you do get ahead, feel free to send in emails to us at digestingdarkpod@gmail.com. That is digestingdarkpod@gmail.com. And just please make sure you put the episode number and not even the title. Just put the episode number into the subject line. And then when I go through the emails, I can pull for just those specific episodes. If it doesn't have the episode number in it, then we're not going to be able to talk about it on particular episodes, and we'll have to save it for the end of the season wrap up, just because I don't want to accidentally see something from a later episode. So yeah. You also can chat with us on Twitter at BrooksZA and at Aaron JAY Brooks. But please just don't spoil anything. Just remember, you're probably ahead of us. So,
this isn't a community of people that's crazy about spoiling this show for others.
No, I don't think so too. I just like to be overly cautious to try to.
No, I get you.
Yeah. And we don't even have any MVPs to give away at the end of this, except to each other. I will give you the MVP for this episode.
I'll take it.
You're supposed to give me one.
Oh, yes.
It's a cycle. Yes.
Yes.
All right. And with that, yes. So we're gonna have a day off. Although it probably won't be a day off for everybody because I was probably listening to this on Friday. And then we'll be back on Saturday morning. Sometime as soon as we wake up, we're going to watch the episode. You're going to get up at 3 a.m. I'm going to get up at regular person time and then watch the episode. And then we'll record a podcast and get it out as soon as we can on Saturday. And then we'll be back probably almost every day starting on Saturday to recap every episode of Dark. It's going to be much different because it's no longer be a rewatch podcast. It's going to be a first watch.
Yep, I'm really looking forward to. I can't remember what it was like to watch a fresh episode of Dark. So
I know. What do you think? Where do you think we start? So season 1 starts with the bunker and then Michael hanging himself. Season 2 starts with 1921 and the cave being dug by Noah and potentially Bartos. Where do you think we start season 3?
Martha and Jonas arriving in Outworld.
Martha and Jonas arriving. Okay.
I think we gotta go right to that. Because I mean, they show the current world blowing up as that's the final shot.
Well, they do, but then somebody else pointed out that and I did think about this. So the current world blows up, but the house doesn't get destroyed because in the future Jonas is able to sleep in that house. So it's like kind of unless it's a different explosion and we're seeing things totally change. That world shouldn't have actually completely blown up. It just might have been the nuclear fallout.
I mean, you hear the glass breaking and everything.
Right, but the house itself is still standing. I mean, it's still standing so much that the calendar is still on the wall.
Yeah. Or maybe...
Unless this is different, unless the cycle actually did advance and this wasn't what we thought we always saw, this was something different.
Yeah, that could be. I don't know.
Yeah. All right, well, yeah, I'll say that we're going to start in the bunker. I'll say the bunker with like the people in it, the Noah's Ark version of the bunker, but it could be any version of the bunker, really. So we'll see. We'll find out. Less than 48 hours. We'll find out where we are.
Yep. Looking forward to it.
All right. Clock is ticking. Tick tock, and we'll see you guys on Saturday.
See ya.